A VP who had no authority over my department told my team we were working the 4th of July. By the end of it, she'd been yelled at by the CEO, her career was in free fall, and I'd just thrown the most expensive office party in the history of the company. This one comes straight from Reddit, and I'm gonna let the poster tell it. Here's how it all went down. It started on a Monday, the 13th of June. I got an email from a VP who had zero authority over my department. I'll call her the bad VP, telling me my IT team would be required to work on the 4th of July. I wrote back politely and said no. My team had already been given that day off. People had made plans, families, fireworks, the whole thing. Now, if you've ever worked in IT, you already know where this is going. IT teams get voluntold into situations like this constantly. Every company has a version of it, the department that exists to be sacrificed whenever something inconvenient comes up. The poster knew exactly what this was. Over the next few days, I kept my team in the loop. I told them I was escalating it, working the phones, trying to get it reversed. I promised them, if their holiday gets ruined, I will make it right. In the meantime, I started going up the chain, meeting after meeting, and none of them went my way. So I went straight to the top. I sent an email directly to the CEO. My own VP and the other higher-ups all knew I was going to do it. They actually encouraged it, because apparently this particular CEO is very big on family time and would never stand for forcing people in on a national holiday. Except he was in the Bahamas until the 6th. His assistant let me know he'd look at it when he got back. So that was that. I told my team we'd be working from home that day with my personal cell set as the priority line for incoming calls. I'd take the bulk of them myself. Honestly, I was expecting almost nothing. It was the 4th of July. Who was going to call IT support? Oh, and I was asked to send out a company-wide notification letting everyone know IT would be available that day. I never sent it. Then came the next hit. A new email arrived telling me that working from home was no longer an option. Every single one of my employees had to be physically in the office. They'd be checking badge-in records to verify. The reason given? They wanted to make sure no one was playing video games. Let me be clear about something. My team normally works from home roughly 2/3 of the time. And playing video games in the office? Completely normal, standard, practically encouraged. This rule was invented specifically for us, specifically for this day. I walked into that VP's office. We had a long back and forth, and she was losing the logic of it by every measure. And then she said it. It's just IT. You guys don't have lives. And yeah, that actually happened. I reported it immediately to my own VP. He said he'd handle it, but it would likely be after the 4th. So, and I'm quoting him here, get creative. The poster says they'd worked with this man long enough to know exactly what that meant. Get creative was code for something beautiful. So I got creative. First, I asked the bad VP whether I could throw an office party for the team as a kind of apology for the situation. She said yes, as long as it didn't interfere with call flow. She even told me to use my new company credit card. Her exact words, go wild. Pro tip, never tell me to go wild. I pulled my team together and got a read on everyone's situation. 2 of them had been planning to do fireworks with their families. The rest had barbecue plans with friends. I told them all, bring whoever you want. Friends, family, all of it. No one needs to bring a single thing. Food is covered. And if anyone happened to want to bring some fireworks, well, no one was stopping them. Now, let me describe the building we work out of. A while back, IT was moved out of the main corporate office and into a smaller, standalone building. It's got a gaming break room, a gym, and a full soft drink bar. And out back, there's a large patio. And here's the part that matters. That patio crosses county lines the moment you step over a small creek. A creek with a footbridge leading to an open field. I started making phone calls. The 4th arrived, and the entire day, no tickets, no service requests, not a single real call came in. Well, 7 calls came in, all from the bad VP, checking to make sure we were manning the phones. Meanwhile, the whole team was watching movies or playing video games, every single one of them. 6 p.m., the food was ready. The team was expecting hot dogs, maybe some burgers. What they got was a full-scale barbecue feast. Smoked brisket, spare ribs, smoked sausage, smoked turkey, 2 kinds of potato salad, coleslaw, green beans with bacon and onion, potatoes au gratin, pizza from 2 different places, excellent burgers, and bratwurst. And that's before dessert. Custom cakes, 4 kinds of pie, cookies from a boutique baker, and about 2 pounds of fudge. The barbecue alone came from a place that had been in the top 10 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 30 years straight. The poster knew the owner personally. The burger caterer brought his kids. The bad VP had told them to go wild, and they had taken that instruction seriously. Friends and family started arriving around 6:15. Some people brought alcohol. The poster told them to leave it in their cars. Not that crazy. Some folks weren't thrilled, but a free dinner from a legendary barbecue joint tends to smooth things over. So picture it. The whole team out on the patio. Families everywhere. People eating, talking, throwing firecrackers into a 1-foot-deep creek. Sparklers going. The poster standing there with all calls routed to their personal cell phone, which was not ringing. And then the poster's own VP showed up, the good one, with his family and a bag of water balloons. Around 8:30, it was getting dark, and people wanted to do more than sparklers. So the VP walked everyone across the footbridge, over the county line, off company property entirely, and they set up a launch board in the empty field. They fired off fireworks for an hour or 2. At 7:50, the bad VP called once more for a status update. The poster's response? You were actually the only one who called us today. The rest of us are out back enjoying the 4th of July. The bad VP's response? As long as there's no alcohol or fireworks on company property, I don't care. There weren't, technically. People didn't start heading home until around 10:30. Leftovers were packed up and taken. A small group stayed to clean, including the VP. He pulled the poster aside and asked, laughing, how much all of this cost. The poster just gave him a look. Tuesday morning, the expense report landed on the VP's desk. From there, it made its way to the bad VP, then to the CIO, then up the chain. The poster won't give the exact number, but here's a hint. After this party, the company put in place a new rule requiring approval from a direct supervisor, the department VP, and a full financial review for any expense over $4,000. The party cost over $6,000. The CEO came back from the Bahamas, reviewed the logs, and saw that IT had received no real calls, no tickets, and had essentially spent the day watching movies. He was not angry about the party. He was furious that IT was the only department forced to work that day at all. He sent a company-wide message to every level of upper management about work-life balance and the value of national holidays. Then the poster's VP made sure the CEO and CIO heard exactly what the bad VP had said. You guys don't have lives. The bad VP confirmed she'd said it in a meeting. The CEO came to the IT building and yelled at her directly. The poster says they had never heard anything like it before. As of the time of writing, the bad VP was not at work. Still active in the system, no termination flag, but gone. And whatever standing she'd had was finished. The bad VP sent the poster an apology email. The poster forwarded it to the whole team with one instruction: do not reply. Okay, that's how the poster tells it. Let me step completely out of that seat. Here's where I land. First, the jury. The comments on this one were not complicated. The top response was just someone asking if they could come work there. Another one broke down the math. A $6,000 party as a team-building event against the cost of a corporate retreat or a motivational speaker is actually a bargain. And if even one person stays at the company an extra year because of it, the ROI is strong. A third comment went straight at the "you guys don't have lives" line and called it what it was, a denial of basic human worth dressed up as a work policy. And a fourth, a long one, came from someone who talked about what it actually feels like to work for a manager who has your back. That one hit different. Here's my verdict. The bad VP owns every inch of this. She had no authority over that department and used social pressure and invented rules to force a team off their holiday anyway. She doubled down by banning remote work over a pretextual reason. And then she said the quiet part loud, that IT people don't have lives. That's not a slip. That's the belief system driving every decision she made. The poster didn't break a single rule. They used a company card they were explicitly told to use for a party they were explicitly told to throw on a patio that crossed a county line before anything flammable went up. Every move was clean. The CEO agreed. The fallout was entirely of her own making. Now, was $6,000 excessive? The comments mostly said no, and I'm with them. The bad VP set the terms. Go wild is not a budget. If she wanted a limit, she should have set one. She didn't, so they went wild. Here's what I want to know. The bad VP told an entire department they don't have lives, and then handed their manager a company card and said, go wild. At what point did this escalate past justified and into something more? Was the $6,000 bill perfect poetry, or did it cross a line? Tell me where you think the meter ran out. Drop your answer in the comments. Case 2. What happens when someone dares you to work around them, and you do exactly that, right up until a police officer is watching? I'm a foreman on a new house build. The site itself is the kind that makes every delivery day an adventure. The house sits a couple 100 feet up a hillside, accessible only by a footpath. No vehicle gets to the top. Everything we use to build that house, every board, every bag of concrete, gets carried up by hand. So when the city gives us 2 reserved parking spots on the street below, those spots aren't a convenience. They're a lifeline. The spots are marked with official no parking signs. That doesn't stop school parents from treating them like their personal pickup lane twice a day. Most of the time, if I ask someone to move and we don't have an urgent need, I let it go. I'm not looking for a fight. But the day a roof-framing lumber delivery is inbound is not the day to test me on that. I get a call from the driver. He's maybe 2 or 3 minutes out, hauling all the material we need to frame the roof. Big stuff, heavy stuff, an unload that's going to take my crew the better part of an hour just to get it up the hill. The last thing I need is that truck sitting in the middle of the street with its hazard lights blinking for 60 minutes when I have a perfectly legal spot waiting for it. I start heading down the hill, and I spot a woman sitting in her car in our reserved zone, engine running. I figure she's just waiting for her kid. School's half a block away. I walk up, knock on the window, and as politely as I know how, explain the situation. No parking zone, delivery truck inbound. I really need her to clear out. She scoffs, tells me she'll only be a couple minutes, the truck isn't here yet, and suggests I take a chill pill. Right on cue, a fully loaded lumber truck comes rolling around the corner. I wave to the driver and then gesture toward the woman's car so he understands the situation. She rolls her window back up and stares straight ahead. I smile, wave through the glass. She drops it halfway, snaps at me to say what I want. I ask her again, firmer this time. Tow-away zone, delivery truck, please move the vehicle. That's when she says the thing that changes everything. She looks at the truck, looks at me, and says, "Why don't we just unload around her car? It's not that complicated." And yeah, that's when the idea clicks. I thank her for the suggestion. Then I walk over to the driver and tell him to pull in as close to her car as he physically can. On one end of the reserved zone, there's a porta potty. On the other side, a legally parked car sits right up against the boundary of our spots. Between the truck, the porta potty, and that parked car, we have everything we need to build a very snug little enclosure around her vehicle. The driver gets it immediately. He grins and maneuvers that rig into position like he's done it 100 times. Because honestly, the precision these guys park with is something else. Within minutes, her car is sitting in what amounts to a 2-spot jail cell. Lumber truck on one side, porta potty on the other. No way in or out. We start unstrapping the load. My crew begins the long haul up the hill. I pull out my phone and call parking enforcement. Not to go after her, genuinely just to get a record of why part of the street is temporarily obstructed, so the city doesn't come after us. The officer on the line tells me she can be on scene in about 30 minutes. Perfect. We're maybe halfway through the unload when her kid shows up from school. And this is the moment she figures out what's happened. She goes to open her driver's door, and it swings about 4 inches before it meets the side of the truck. There's no room. She has to crawl across the inside of the car, push out the passenger side, and stumble onto the curb, all while shooting the dirtiest looks she can manage at me and the driver. She gets the kid buckled into the back seat. Then she walks up to us and informs us, loudly, that she is in a hurry and we need to move the truck immediately. The driver doesn't even look at me. He just smiles and tells her that once a load is unstrapped, company policy says the truck cannot be moved until the load is fully secured again. He's very sorry. This is the part that still gets me. Because what she does next is scream at him that she doesn't care about his policy and that he needs to move right now. And at that exact moment, the parking enforcement officer rolls up and parks behind the truck. The woman doesn't see her. The officer is still climbing out of her vehicle when I look at this woman, put on the most deliberate smile I have, and say, "Well, can't you just drive out around it? Seems straightforward enough." She goes very still as it lands. Then she yells something unrepeatable in my direction and storms back to her car. She climbs back in through the passenger side, and then, with the officer now on foot walking toward us, she throws the car into reverse and floors it, straight into the porta potty. The thing goes over. She doesn't stop. She cranks the wheel, drops it into drive, and tries to mount the sidewalk to escape. The 3 of us, the officer, the driver, and me, just stand there, watching. She gets the front wheels up over the curb, and then the car grinds to a stop, high-centered, going nowhere. We can hear her screaming from inside over the sound of the idling truck. The officer walks up to the driver's window and orders her out. And the look on that woman's face when she realizes a uniformed officer has been watching the last 60 seconds of her life? That's a look I won't forget. She gets cuffed and parked on the very curb she just tried to drive over. A second unit gets called. Her kid gets picked up by a family member. The lumber finishes going up the hill. The driver gives his statement and heads back to the yard. By the time everything was processed, she was facing charges for reckless driving, destruction of property, that porta potty, and child endangerment, because her kid was strapped into the back through all of it. Then the real kicker. When they ran her information, it turned out she'd been driving on a suspended license the whole time. Car got towed. She got a cell. Okay, that's the foreman's account. Stepping out of that seat now. Here's where I actually land. The comments first. The most upvoted reaction wasn't even about the parking. It was about watching someone make one bad decision, then a worse one, then a worse one still. Every single off-ramp ignored. The reply right below it made the point that if you're already driving on a suspended license, the one thing you do not do is draw attention to yourself. Both of those observations are correct. Here's my ruling. The woman owns every bit of this. She was in a marked tow-away zone. She was told twice, politely, to move. She had multiple moments to walk it back. After the first ask, after the second, when the truck boxed her in, when the officer arrived, and she escalated every single time instead. The foreman didn't trap her. He took her at her word and unloaded around her, exactly as she suggested. What happened after that was entirely her own doing. The suspended license is the detail that reframes the whole thing. This wasn't a person who made one impulsive mistake. The judgment was already broken before she ever pulled into that spot. And the comments are right there with me on all of it. Now tell me, at what point did you think she was going to stop and cut her losses? And where did she actually pass the point of no return? Because there were a lot of exits on that road. Drop your answer below. Case 3. What do you do when someone's paying you a fraction of what you're worth and still acts like they own you? So, I'm an engineer. I do occasional consulting on the side, but only for people I know, and only as a favor. I have no real interest in building a side business out of it. It's just something I do when a friend asks and I have the bandwidth. That's exactly what happened here. A good friend reached out. His in-laws had bought an older house and were planning some serious renovations. Major additions, structural changes, the kind of project that has complications waiting to happen written all over it from the moment you look at the floor plan. I agreed to help because he asked me to. Full stop. I charged them maybe 1/10 of what any firm would have quoted. 1/10. This wasn't a business arrangement. It was me doing a solid for a friend's family. My friend did warn me going in. He said the mother-in-law could be difficult. I appreciated the heads up, but I figured I could handle a prickly client. I've dealt with prickly before. He was being generous with the word difficult. From the start, she treated me like staff she'd hired off a staffing agency. Snapping, dismissive, impatient whenever I flagged a concern about their plans. And there were real concerns. Old houses like this one don't give up their surprises quietly. But every time I raised something, I got pushback laced with condescension. It was unpleasant, but the poster says they kept it moving. Tolerable, just barely. Then came the site visit. I needed to physically inspect a few areas of the house. Standard stuff, just verifying some information before I could move forward. I offered weekend times, no good. I offered evenings, also no good. What she wanted, what she actually insisted on, was for me to show up during my regular office hours, because that was convenient for her. And yeah, that's when it turned. I told her no, weekends or evenings. Those were my options. I have a full-time job. I'm not pulling myself out of my actual workplace to service a discounted side project on her preferred schedule. She responded by telling me, and the poster is clear on this, that she was the one paying, and therefore I would work around her availability, not the other way around. She said it like she was correcting a junior employee who'd forgotten their place. So I CC'd my friend on the chain, told them both I was done, wished them luck finding someone else, and closed the laptop. My friend apologized. I told him it was fine, not his fault, not my problem anymore. Then she sent a follow-up, genuinely stunned that I'd walked. She wrote back saying this wasn't how business was conducted. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. About 3 weeks pass. Then I get an email, not from her this time, but from the husband. He wanted to know if I'd reconsider. He promised she wouldn't be involved,
wouldn't communicate with me at all, would stay completely out of it. And here's the part that got back to me through my friend. The quotes they'd received from actual firms had come back significantly higher, which honestly they could absorb. The real problem was the wait. It was a brutally busy season for the industry. When you've got a complex, potentially messy older house project, and you're calling firms that are already drowning in work, you are not their priority. Nobody was chomping at the bit to take this on. They were now looking at a month or two just to get designs finished, which meant losing the tradespeople they'd already lined up. The whole timeline was collapsing. The poster passed on the husband's offer. They didn't believe she'd actually stay out of it, and more to the point, they had zero interest in rescuing her from a situation she'd created herself. My friend's take? He said it was genuinely satisfying to watch her attitude produce consequences that actually landed. Okay, that's the poster's account. Stepping out of their voice now. Here's where I land. First, let's see what the jury thought. The most upvoted comment went straight to the core of it. A favor done at a steep discount comes with different terms than a full-rate contract. The analogy that got a lot of traction was a creative professional who charges $100 for their work, agreeing to do it for $10 as a favor. If you then act like you're owed the full-price treatment, you're the problem, and they're entitled to walk. That framing landed because it's exactly right. Another reply took the practical angle. Firms that are already swamped have no reason to hustle for a complicated project from a difficult client. The market wasn't going to bend for her attitude the way she expected it to. And a few comments noted, almost dryly, that she'd probably retell this to everyone she knows as a story about how she was wronged. Here's my verdict. The mother-in-law was wrong, clearly and completely. She received a deeply discounted service from someone doing a personal favor, and she responded by treating that person as an on-call employee with no schedule of their own. The demand that he rearrange his actual working day around her convenience, not once, not as a request, but as a stated expectation backed by hostility, was the moment she ended this herself. She just didn't realize it yet. Now, the husband's offer. I think the poster was right to decline, and I don't think it's close. The promise that she won't be involved on a project involving her own home, which she's already demonstrated she needs to control, is not a promise anyone can actually keep. Walking away a second time wasn't petty. It was just realistic. The one counter-argument worth taking seriously, some of the comments pointed out that a paying client, even a discounted one, reasonably expects some accommodation. That's fair in principle, but accommodation has a floor. Leaving your day job midweek to make someone's schedule easier when you're already charging them almost nothing is not accommodation. That's subordination. And she wasn't asking, she was demanding. The comments are right there with me on this one. You wanted to treat a favor like leverage. The industry had other plans. Court's adjourned. Karma's been served. Now, I want to hear from you. Was walking away the right call? Or should the poster have gone back with the husband's guarantee and seen it through? Make your case in the comments. And if you've ever fired a client who forgot what kind of deal they were getting, tell me how it went. And if you want a seat on the jury for the next case, go ahead and subscribe. I hand down a fresh verdict every week. A quick like helps more people find the courtroom.